prevented people from being denied insurance for pre-existing conditions. However, it was very flawed, and nobody's done any work on it at all since it was passed. Instead of the Republicans wanting to tear up the entire act, instead of the Democrats trying to save the entire act, we've wasted precious time trying to fix that act. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm very concerned that it will all collapse, and then we'll have even more disarray in our healthcare system.
So, again, there's so much common ground. But there's one person standing up here who's actually voted for bills to expand telemedicine in Virginia. There's one person standing up here who's looked at the regulatory review for the roles of nurse practitioners to bring down costs, the roles of physician assistants in rural underserved areas to bring down costs. And candidly, there is a plan, and this is an exciting opportunity for me, to repeal and replace Obamacare, and you just need to go to www.better.gop to find it. It's been spelled out in detail. It's a market-based solution that understands that the government need not be in control of the fruits of working people's labor. That when you let individuals make decisions for themselves, they tend to make pretty good decisions and sort of refine starting from those basic economic truths.
One other area I should mention, which we both have failed to mention, is the rising cost of pharmaceuticals. That was not meant to be addressed by the Affordable Care Act, but it hasn't been. That started when Bush, actually the rules that were passed under George Bush prohibited us from negotiating those rates with pharmaceuticals. We need to make sure that we go to a private sector negotiation for those, and that will reduce pharmaceutical costs.
Next question will come from Jim Richards at Petty, Livingston, Dawson, and Richards. First to be answered by Jane.
My question is, despite an abundance of attention on education, we continue to have a lack of preparedness of students for meeting our workforce needs. How will you address this challenge facing our students and employers?
I have a long history of school business alliances, being from the private sector, working with K through 12, our community college system, and of course the University of Virginia. The Janes for Job program, which is on my website, talks about a three-pronged approach. One of the critical prongs is workforce training. What we need to do is make sure we're training for the jobs we have and training for the jobs we want to have. And that then is communicated to our employers. Also, what we need to do is make sure it's affordable for people. We currently do not subsidize certifications, credentialing for employers, and apprenticeship programs like we do regular community college and the university. And I think that we need to work on that immediately and have more people getting training that they can afford.
First, we need to break the back of the educational industrial complex that tells students that a four-year liberal arts degree from a four-year institution is the only pathway to success. Different people have different definitions of success, and one of the things that makes this the greatest country in the world is that we get to define for ourselves what it is we want to do. And so that young man or woman with a degree or certification in HVAC or in machining or in welding, they're not unemployed. And they're not suffering economically. Those jobs are there. The old Dominion training centers in my district, the kids that go through the machining program are hired at a 100% rate, starting at $20-some-odd an hour, and 10 years as a master machinist, they'll be living across the street from the doctors and the lawyers. PVCC is working with UVA and Martha Jefferson to produce nurses. CVCC in Lynchburg is working with BWX and Arrivo. They're talking, and they need to be, in the state of Virginia, and I'm proud to say myself, have been part of making them talk. Southside Virginia Community College has the 21st Century Manufacturing Technology Center, and we're headed in the right direction. But kids don't all need to go to school and study English at a four-year institution. By gosh, if you enjoy being outside, there's honor in being a carpenter. There's nothing wrong with it, but we tell our kids that one size fits all, and we're doing them a great disservice. And you also see that contributing to a ridiculous dark cloud of student loan debt looming over young people's heads. By the way, I think we're the only campaign in the country to address how to deal with that. So, you know, we are headed in the right direction. I'm really proud of our community colleges and our General Assembly, candidly, and our last two governors for recognizing the importance of job force training and recognizing that the employers are people with whom the trainers need to talk and actually doing it. Thank you.
We really are blessed in the district. We have so many fine community colleges that have footprint to train our young people and retrain our adults. I think that part of what we also need to do is make sure that we have jobs waiting at the end of the pipeline of education, and I think that's what good, solid economic development is about.
All right, we have come to the end of the panelist questions, and audience members have submitted some questions, and we'll read those now and give you an opportunity to respond. I hope this hasn't been too clunky for you.
No, it's all
running
right.
around. This comes from Abigail Turner. What will you do to bring more jobs which pay higher wages to this area?
I think that the first thing that I am eager to be involved with is the partnership between local government, economic development activity, any regional partnerships that exist, and we have a good one here in the Lynchburg region. And then, of course, what we can do with the state economic development program and that seat in Washington. Some of the case studies I looked at before I wrote the plan for our region involved using the seat in Washington to help with relocation and retention. I think that also another thing that I would really like to encourage us to think about is economic development as a science. It's not haphazard. You look at your assets and you build on them. You look at your challenges and you try to address them with partnership. And then you put together an excellent marketing program to retain, to help small business grow, and to relocate. And I have a big background in that.
Mark, you deserve a medal. I do apologize for scurrying around. You've done an amazing job on 0 units. All Jane and I had to do is stand there.
Gotta watch my waist.
Yeah. You know, well done's better than well said. If you want an indicator of future performance, look at past performance. And so, when the largest independent, I believe, American-owned brewery west of the Mississippi, Deschutes, came to Albemarle County and said we want to build a facility here, when Ballast Point started sniffing around Albemarle County from San Diego, they found a way to say no. They were asked to rezone 80 acres and they didn't do it. And a lot of people, including, with all due respect, my opponents said, you know, we're not ready for those jobs. Well, I guess the good news is for Roanoke that they were ready for those jobs. We had a similar situation in my Senate district. Hardywood Brewery wanted to leave Richmond and come somewhere near an interstate. So when I found out they were interested in coming to Goochland County, I called the Board of Supervisors in Goochland and said, tell me what to do. And the difference is, instead of breaking ground in the 6th Congressional District, those jobs are in the 22nd Virginia Senate District because we got Hardywood there, and they're spending tens of millions of dollars bringing private sector infrastructure and perpetual new revenue to that locality. And we did it here in Appomattox County with Murphy Oil. When VDOT would not approve a ramp to the business for Murphy Oil and the contract was due to expire on a Friday, we intervened on a Wednesday after being asked that morning. And by Thursday, VDOT had done what they needed to do, and 20 to 24, or what was quoted to me by the mayor, Paul Harvey, good day, new jobs came here to Appomattox County. So well done's better than well said. If you want to see what people are going to do to bring jobs, look at what they've already done.
Well done is better than well said, and you didn't say that quite right, Tom. On your own website, you talked about the fact that government should not subsidize private sector and pick winners and losers. We were on Team Virginia. We were trying to keep Deschutes in Virginia. Of course, Albemarle competed for it. Roanoke did a great job. Roanoke was willing to do two things. One we couldn't do, which was to subsidize their land. We had a private landowner involved with that who asked us to rezone 23 acres, which we actually did do. And also, Roanoke was willing to give away $7 million in considerations. And we believe that our breweries and cideries and distilleries and wineries should compete all on the same footing. So that kind of package would not have happened in Albemarle County. You mentioned your brewery that you were able to work with Goochland on. Goochland subsidized that with $2 million. We are going to have a location from that same brewery in Charlottesville. We gave away no money to get that there. I think that you have to be very careful with incentives. We know about a story here in Appomattox where there was a disaster with regard to state incentives. We have to be careful and scientific and have good, what they call clawback, so that employers perform. During the time that 70 jobs were secured by Roanoke, which is, by the way, going to help Bedford and Franklin that are in our district, we created 1,500 jobs just by actions from our board at the very same time.
And I guess it depends on what the definition of create is. Because that's like saying UVA started 98 biotech firms. Ultimately, there's a difference between a bar that Hardywood's opening in Charlottesville and a brewery where they brew the beer. And I'll tell you, I was at the governor's mansion in December of 2015 by complete happenstance the night that the Shoots was there. And I'm intimately familiar with what they wanted to do and where they wanted to do it. And it makes all the sense in the world to me for a brewery coming from the west coast to the east to locate itself near I-81, I-64, I-95 in the heart of a world-class university community where when all those young people graduate, they'll take their tasted beer with them when they move across the nation. That's a brilliant marketing ploy. They were stymied. There is a difference between finding a way, an excuse to say no and a way to get to yes. We found a way to get to yes.
Audience member question from Betty Ziegler.
Mark,
So-
I get to set one.
My apologies.
We were not willing to pay $7 million for 70 jobs. That was one of the bottom lines. With regard to technology transfer, I understand that you don't understand this, but those biotech firms are taking patents from the University of Virginia, from people that have ideas. They're being licensed, and then they're staying in our trade area with their wet labs to grow those jobs. So that can happen at Liberty University, it can happen at Everett, but those biotech firms are directly related to the University of Virginia being in our trade area.
That's how it works.
Very good.
All right, now for Betty's question. What is your stand on uranium mining?
Where's Betty? Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. I tell you what, I don't know if any of y'all watch television, but occasionally, not as often as I'd like, I do. And I've seen the TV ad that Ms. Dittmar has been running that says I voted in favor of uranium mining. And I think to call that disingenuous is an understatement. I'd say it's a lie. If you look at the bill and you read the bill says nothing in its entire 3-page text about uranium mining. In fact, Ms. Dittmar talks about bipartisanship and working across the aisle. There are 140 members of the Virginia Senate and House of Delegates combined. The bill passed 127 to 8. Folks, if that bill had to do with uranium mining, there'd be uranium mining today. That was a common sense bill to make sure that Virginia was on the forefront with Surrey and North Anna and Norfolk Naval Base and BWX and Areva of the nuclear power industry in the nation as we move forward, which is why it passed 127 to 8 along very bipartisan lines. And I'd ask Ms. Dittmar if she'd be willing to retract the ad or apologize for the complete falsehood that it is. That bill had nothing to do with uranium mining. I've never voted for it. I'm not going to vote for it because I'm going to Congress and that's a state issue.
So I have to stand by the ad. The bill actually was a bill that was, I think you were one of the co-sponsors, Tom, were you? And it was just a couple weeks after accepting campaign contributions or contributions from Virginia Uranium. That bill absolutely was an attempt to get rid of the moratorium on uranium mining. Don't take my word for it. Bill Stanley, a Republican colleague of Tom Garrett's in the state Senate, Frank Ruff, a Republican colleague and state senator, colleague of Tom's, voted against that. Voted against that because Southside does not want uranium mining, and they don't want any slippery slopes to have that happen to them in the future. Republican farmers don't want uranium mining. Your fingerprint was all over that, Tom.
All over what? Not voting for uranium mining? I mean, the bill passed 127 to 8, and there's no uranium mining because we never passed a bill to allow uranium mining. This is like some crazy convoluted cartwheels that we're getting here. But the bottom line is that 127 people voted to form the Virginia Nuclear Energy Consortium. You need to learn to read bills. This one says nothing about uranium mining. And yes, there was later a bill for uranium mining. And yes, I took money from whatever the name of the company was. And no, I didn't vote for that bill either. So, hello. I mean, there was a bill to mine uranium. I didn't vote for it. This wasn't the one. How many tens of thousands of dollars, Ms. Dittmar, have you spent telling Virginians, I voted for something that's not contained in the bill, and will you apologize and retract the act? That's reasonable.
Even the executive director or past executive director of the Republican Party about this commercial said Jane got it about right. So Tom, I'm not retracting something that's true. Here's the thing, people are sick of having politicians who rank down at the bottom below car dealerships, politicians in Washington, 8% approval. They're tired of seeing money associated with votes for the people that have given them money. Now, I'm not saying that's what you did, but there's a correlation there. I think if you vote for something, you should stand by it and not try to change your mind later in a debate.
Another question from our audience comes from James Piles. Do you support an increase in the minimum wage?
There's been a lot of talk about increasing the minimum wage and the amount that it should be increased. I do think that we need to look at an increase in the minimum wage and a baseline from on a United States standard, but I absolutely think that trade area approach is the way to go. When you hear about increasing a minimum wage for $15 an hour, which was the national discussion, $15 in New York City is too low, $15 in our trade area or in Bristol, Tennessee is too high, so I think we need to look at this as a trade area issue.
I believe in allowing markets to work. It's been an incredible experience traveling around the 5th Congressional District. Here's a little factoid for you, probably not a popular one. 78% of tobacco grown in Virginia now, 4/5 almost, is grown in the 5th District. And almost all of the hardworking people who pull that tobacco are H-2A visa holders. God bless them. They come here, they play by the rules, and then they go back home. They're making $10.72 an hour because, my gosh, if an American is faced with the choice between working under McDonald's drive-thru or being a greeter at Walmart for $10.72 an hour or pulling tobacco in Mecklenburg County, right? But did you know that the employers of these people can't pay them more? We talked to an employer who had one employee who had been back 40 straight years. You know how much he made? $10.72 an hour. The guy that had been there for 1 year, $10.72 an hour. That's ridiculous. That's the federal government's stupidity. You can't pay him a dime more. So look, markets will work, and you know what? We have jobs that need to be filled, and you know what? If you let the markets work, then the people are going to fill them. And you know what? What we need are more of those jobs here in the 5th District. And you know what? The way we get them is by rolling back regulation, rolling back taxes, and creating a climate that encourages people to exercise initiative to create jobs. And that's what we're not getting from Washington right now. And that's really one of the huge reasons we're running.
A robust economy is how you have wages and benefits rise for people. And so in a healthy economy, in an economy that's flourishing, your people will be paid higher than the minimum wage because there will be competition for labor. That is the best solution. The question was, would you support a minimum wage increase? And so I answered that.
Once again, we are absolutely in lockstep agreement. A robust economy is how jobs and wages grow. And yet, the number of unemployed people in this country in the last 7.5 years is mind-numbing. The labor participation rate in the United States is at its lowest number since women entered the workforce in mass. How scary is that? The labor participation rate in Albemarle County, where Ms. Dittmar was the chair of the Board of Supervisors, is the lowest among all the peer counties in the state. The labor participation rate amongst young people in that county is the lowest of all the peer counties in the state. Yes, when the economy is growing and robust, but all the new jobs we're getting are in the service industry. They're fast food jobs. We pushed other jobs aside. We've sent other jobs overseas. This TPP nightmare will finish the death that NAFTA started for the textile industry, for the furniture industry. There are still people fighting to compete for those jobs in this district because I know, because I've met them. And we're going to go fight for those people and what we can do for people across the Potomac before we fight for people across the Pacific. The role of the American government is to stick up for Americans.
That's right.
Our closing statements based on a random draw before the debate. First closing statement will be delivered by Jane. Thank you.
Elections are about choices, and of course we have a Democrat and a Republican, we have a woman, we have a man, we have a business person, we have a lawyer. I want you to remember the following things. I have 35 years of experience and a record of growing jobs, not only because I'm a small business person and a successful one, but because my regional business community asked me to lead them for almost a decade to help make a robust economy. What I want you to remember about that is what Tom said. Well done is better than well said. Look at my record. Look at what I did on the Board of Supervisors. If you don't think I know how to go after dollars that are going to other communities, look at what I did when I was on the Board of Supervisors for Albemarle County. I will do that to the entire 5th District. South Dakota is the most wired state in a rural state area. Why? Because they went after federal communications dollars and they used their local and state and federal seat to make sure that those dollars came home. I will bring home the bacon. That's my record, and I will do that. Finally, if you want to send someone to Washington who can help change the dialogue, who can help change it up, choose someone that has a 16-year record of professional mediation, who knows how to work with people with all kinds of different communication styles along all spectrums of a political opinion. And I thank you, and I ask for your vote on November 8th.
I can't believe it's over, although my voice can't. I want to thank Jane and everybody here, genuinely. It's been an honor to run for James Madison's congressional seat, the father of the Constitution. Does that ever keep you up at night? I know I've stared at the ceiling a few times. Yeah, I mean, there's a choice, and I think that Ms. Dittmar's a wonderfully nice lady, and I think that her intentions are good, but well done's better than well said. One of us had a brewery come to our district, the other one had a brewery go somewhere else. One of us fought to get jobs right here in Appomattox with Murphy Oil by intervening very late in the game. I know somebody was nodding earlier, you know the story, and got that job done. You can talk about it all day, but actually bringing those jobs is something that I can take some credit for, and I'm proud of it. And we've worked on that precursor to employment, education. I didn't just vote to roll back the SOL burden on our students. By gosh, I helped carry the bill. I didn't just vote to eliminate the draconian, ridiculous 140 seat hour requirement on our students. I helped carry the bill. I didn't just vote to end seclusion and restraint, where they locked little boys usually up in converted janitor's closets and chained them, not kidding, to desks, which was done in Virginia until a year and a half ago. I helped carry the bill. And well done's better than well said is exactly correct. If you want to send somebody to Washington who shares your values, who grew up in rural central Virginia, if you want to send somebody to Washington who will abolish Obamacare and replace it with something that actually works for the American people, who will fight to protect our borders while recognizing the needs of employers here in our country, who will take the fight to ISIS and radical Islam and not suggest that a PR campaign will stop our threat of terrorism as our opponent did last year. I'm your guy. I'm your guy. I think we're both good people. I genuinely enjoy Ms. Dittmar's company. But we have a record of accomplishment on jobs, on education, candidly on national security and defending this nation. By gosh, I signed a piece of paper, and what it said to me was, some things in this world are worth dying for. And the United States of America is one of those things, and I get it. And I don't care what happens to me along the way. I aspire to be the most predictable guy in Washington. I'm going to look you in the eyes. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do everything within my power to do it. Because a lot of people have given a lot more than I ever will for us to have the honor to stand here in this, the greatest nation on the face of God's earth today. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless America.